ஹரியோம். அல்லல்வோம் வல்வினைவோம் அன்னை வயிற்றில் பிறந்த தொல்லைவோம் போகா துயரம்போம் நல்ல குணமதிக மருணை கோபுரத்தில் வீற்றிருக்கும் கணபதியை கைத்தொழுதக்கால். Good morning, friends. Today we will continue the next session around the Samkhya philosophy, which have been deep diving for a couple of sessions in the past. So we will continue with the next few chapters around that. Okay. So today our focus will be on the sāṃkhyadarśana in terms of its handling of the concept of quality. So sāṃkhyadarśane guṇapadārtha. So the quality category in Samkhya philosophy is what our focus of today's session will be. This is basically the ninth session related to this topic. Okay. So let me start with the prayers as usual. சிவன் அவன் என் சிந்தையுள் நின்ற அதனால் அவன் அருளாலே அவன் தாள் வணங்கி சிந்தை மகிழ சிவபுராணம் தன்னை முந்தை வினை முழுதும் ஓய உரைப்பேன் யான். வசதோமா சத்கமய தமசோமா ஜோதிர்கமய மிருத்யோர்மா அமிர்தங்கமய. ஓம் சாந்தி சாந்தி சாந்தி. So we were covering these topics. So what are highlighted in the gray shades are all the topics we have already covered. So from 3.1 to 3.8, we'll take a quick look at each of them. 3.9 is the topic that we want to discuss today, and of course the other pending topics are all these topics which we will eventually cover. So just to give a recap of what all we discussed, we started discussing with the overall perspective on religion, and then about the overall perspective of scriptures around these religions. So across religions of the world, with a special focus on religions within the bhāratīya sanātanadharma, and of course the extended religions perspective, including the Abrahamic religions and other things across the globe. So, and then each of these religions have their own corpus of scriptural authorities. So various revealed scriptures and also other scriptures. So we took a look at them. The video here provides details about the same. This is a YouTube video. Next, we moved on to the topic about the philosophical aspect of human consciousness. So we started discussing on the concept of philosophy as a domain of knowledge. So in terms of what is a philosophy, what are its different branches, and how the branches are classified into various subschools, and then including the geographical basis of classification as Oriental, Occidental, etc., and as also the historical timeline of these the philosophical thought, evolution of the philosophical thought from the earliest times to the recent contemporary times. And then we started looking at an infographic mind map of various philosophical concepts uh, uh, that are considered important, and also the various alternative ways of which the philosophical thought in the world has been grouped or classified. So this is the video for the same. So the links are available here. You can take a look at these videos. They are provided in the description of this video. Okay, and then moving on, we wanted to take a closer look at the native philosophical traditions in India. The earlier was more generic of philosophy across the globe. Okay, then we started focusing on the Indian subcontinent, the philosophical concepts within the Indian subcontinent, and the infography around it, and also the stages of philosophical development there, and how philosophies are classified into Vedic, Agamic philosophies, etc. And started looking at the Astika darshanas, and and also the sixfold Vedic philosophies. What do we mean by Shatvida Vaidika Darshana, or more commonly known as the Shabdarshana? So the six philosophies over history the six philosophies have been identified in different ways in different periods of history. Uh, we saw them. Okay, as part of this session, YouTube session. This is also around 1 hour kind of. With this overall idea on the religion, scriptures, and the Indian philosophical context, we deep dived into one of the Shad-darshanas, which is the Sāṃkhyadarśana. So Sāṃkhyadarśana is what we have been started looking at, and it's almost 8 sessions over, and it is the 9th session that we are looking at here. So we started with the Guru Parampara, or the preceptor lineage in the Samkhya philosophy, and then we started getting into the historiographical chronology in the evolution of Samkhya philosophy across various scriptural references, from the most ancient references in Vedic Samhitas to the different periods of classification of Samkhya philosophy. And then we also looked at the various scriptural corpuses available for Samkhya philosophy, uh, including the Prakarana Granthas, as well as references in the Mahabharata, references in the other schools also, and also from texts like the Ayurveda, etc. This is the YouTube video for that. This is also around a 1 hour video. Then in the subsequent session, we talked about the etymological roots of the term Sāṃkhya, what the term Sāṃkhya etymologically means, and then how from a darśana, Sāṃkhya as a darśana point of view, what exactly is the Sāṃkhya darśana, tracing it to its etymological sources. And then we started looking at the two major ontological themes in the Samkhya philosophy, which is the Purusha Tattva and the Prakriti Tattva. So we saw its Lakshanam, the Purusha Lakshanam and Prakriti Lakshanam. This is the video for that. This is around a longer video. This is around 2 hours of video. Moving on, we started looking at a very important concept of how the two main ontological entities, the Purusha and the Prakriti, that we saw in the earlier session, how they form an unbound wedlock between themselves. Okay, so we saw it from in terms of the dualistic ontology between them, and then there's a very popular analogy of the blind and the lame. How the Purusha and the Prakriti relate themselves as the blind and the lame, and how together they help in the manifestation of this world. Okay, and then we also talked about the natural equilibrium between these two entities. So this is the YouTube video around it. This is also around a 2-hour video. Finally, we saw the next important topic about the theological context of Samkhya philosophy. So, how the concept of theology is addressed in Samkhya. We looked at from three main angles, or three main branches of Samkhya philosophy, which is the theistic declarative philosophy or the Sāṃkhyadarśana, and the hybrid model of theistic and atheistic declarative philosophy, which is the Sheshwara Nirishwara Sāṃkhyadarśana, and finally the more classical atheistic declarative philosophy. And so we see that how Samkhya philosophy incorporates all the three major uh, uh, three major branch of theological inquiry: theistic, and probably an agnostic and an atheistic views. So this is the video associated with that. This is also around a 2-hour video. And now here we are today going to talk about the next important concept, the concept of guna in Samkhya Darshana. So guna is a padartha. So we are going to look at guṇapadārtha as far as Samkhya philosophy goes. Okay. So before getting into the specifics of how Samkhya Darshana handles the concept of guna, we would like to, I think it's better that we understand the etymology of the term, originally referred in various Sanskrit texts. So to this end, we will look at what Sri Yashkacharya in his Nirukta says. Nirukta, as many of us know, is one of the oldest Sanskrit treasures, and it is one of the Veda Angas. So, in this text, there is reference to guna in terms of its etymological roots as Ganu, Gananath, Gunascha. So this is one reference here. Okay. So Ganu means group, Guna quality are also called because they count. Okay, this is what Nirukta says. So in other words, the term Guna closely relates to Mada, quantity. Okay, so it is Guna. We already saw that Sāṃkhya from etymological roots also means enumeration or counting or listing, etc. Right, among the various definitions. So guna also has one of the meanings as a quantitative count or measure in terms of mada. So it is so when you say a quantitative measure, here we are talking about a epistemological measure of counting. And interestingly, it has etymological root verb ma, to measure. Okay, so this is again one of the grammatical uh, sources or analysis of the word guna. According to scholars, the term guna interestingly shares some etymological roots with ma, so which means to measure. And here ma is a very important dhatu which is used for various philosophical concepts, including the concept of maya, um, which is centric to most of Indian philosophy, and all the more to the Kevala Advaita Vedanta Darshana. So we will see how they maps to these concepts as we proceed. Uh, Now predominantly we'll be focusing on the Sankhya side, but when we get into the respective darshanas, we'll deep dive about that. So the alternatively, the term guna is also related to anantrana or deliberation. In other words, guna or quality is a, so guna is a the literal meaning most widely translated in all English versions of the original Sanskrit text is quality for guna. But we just saw that etymologically the term guna is not only uh, represents quality, but it also represents an epistemological measure in terms of quantity or counting. Okay, so other than that, it also means deliberation, similar to how Sankhya also means deliberation. Okay, so and it's a multivalent term here, including so the following ways of deriving meanings. Okay, first the term guna corresponds to epistemological measure of the observable phenomena. Okay, so object of knowledge. Okay, so I mean there are some typos here. So the object of knowledge, which is in terms of measurability. So, and it is also related to the concept of Maya. We already saw where it is where they share the concept of Ma, or to measure. So, and Maya is also related with the concept of magic. From more from how the concept of observing or measuring um, manifests or creates this universe is a very interesting concept, not only in ancient philosophical wisdom, but also in terms of modern quantum physics, where the concept of measurement problem is there, where the concept of how the observer um, plays an integral role in quantum physics, um, in terms of his observation of the wave particle duality, etc. So when we get there, we'll deep dive on that. Okay, then the alternative meaning also has a term in terms of guna as a sutra. Okay, a thread or a cord. Okay, so that is also one of the meanings here. And so in terms of a bandha pasa trivida malam, so the binding cord of trifold impurities as explained in Shuddhadvaita Saiva Siddhanta, or Siddhanta Saivam, right? So there guna amongst its multiple meanings has one of the meaning as sutra. So that we need to keep in mind when we deep dive into Saiva Siddhanta. We'll take a look at it. Okay, earlier presentation we'll be looking at it in terms when we deep dive into Kevala Advaita Vedanta. In terms of Guna Sutra, we'll deep dive when we get into the concept of Saiva Siddhanta. Okay. Then we are looking into the meaning of the deliberation or vocative case in which the term guna is used. So which is the amantrana. So this concept we can trace it to the Paramadvaita Trikashaya Darshana, which is also known as the Kashmir Shaivism. We will deep dive when we get there. Okay, and guna also in terms of lakshana, okay, or the characteristics or an attribute or a quality, which is the more popular Nyaya Vaisheshika Darshana, where we refer to it. So there are four major contexts in which the term guna is being used. Okay, so we will take a look at each of them when we deep dive into the corresponding darshanas. But now, in specifically talking about the Sāṃkhya Darshana, out of these four different kinds of contextual meanings that the term guna takes, except the last, which is in line with the Nyaya Vaisheshika concept of using guna to represent a property or an attribute or a characteristics or a lakshana. Sāṃkhya uses is more appropriate with the first three versions. So okay, so it includes as a lakshana, it includes as a chord, and it includes as a deliberation vocative case. We saw that. Here in Sāṃkhya, when we talk about triple qualities, which we will deep dive, which is including the Tamo Guna, Rajo Guna, and the Sattva Guna, they are not merely attributes, right? When we say trigunas, they are not like the triple attributes in terms of mere characteristics used in Nyaya Vaisheshika. But slightly holistic meaning, including the concept of vocative case as well as the concept of chord, which we saw integral to other darshanas also. So the Sāṃkhya, which is one of the oldest darshanas, uses all the three contextual meanings associated with it. Okay, so with this basic idea on the etymological meanings of the term guna and its implications across various darshanas, we will move on to the next important related concept, which is the concept of padartha lakshana, or the nature of category. Okay, which is another words how philosophy categorizes the basic building blocks in terms of its ontological entities. Ontology is, as we saw in the one earlier session on different branches of philosophy, is one of the main branch of philosophy which categorizes the basic building blocks of the phenomenal reality or the existing reality, right? So ontology is a study of existence. Okay. So there, the way how categorization of the building blocks happens is a very important concept. So, and guna is one of the categories in most of these philosophies. So that's why we first need to understand what do we mean by a category here. So in terms of the ontological categorization. So again, our scriptures um, like the treatise called as Saptapadartha declares um, context like this. Pramiti Vishaya Padartha. So content proved by knowledge is category. So it is basically an epistemological um, mm, category, is epistemological classification of the building blocks. So that is the formal definition of category. So the term padartha itself has pada and artha. So the which means that meaning of a term or meaning of um, pada and artha. Here artha plays a dual role. Artha also means object. Also artha also means meaning. Okay. So so this is interestingly, ontology and epistemology are related when it comes to padartha. Then Tarka Sangraha Deepika. So Tarka Sangraha is one of the primary texts or introductory text to Indian philosophy. Basically, it's a Navya Nyaya text integrating Nyaya and Vaisheshika concepts, and provides the fundamental text to learn the the reasoning or the Nyaya Marga of within any darshana. That almost all darshanas use the Tarka Sangraha text as the main introductory text. So it is a treatise by Annam Bhattacharya. So there, the category is defined as category is a thing corresponding to a name. In the light of this derivation, the general definition of categories is an object named or denoted by the corresponding word. Okay, so uh, so Tarka Sangraha Deepika. The Deepika is a auto commentary on Tarka Sangraha by the same author. Okay, so again in Tarka Sangraha Deepika, there is one more explanation for Padartha, which simplifies it as saying whatever is nameable is category. Okay, so we'll keep all these definitions in mind. And in the and one more comment I wanted to give from the book called The Interpretation of Vaisheshika Categories. It says as everything, whatever subjective or objective, real or unreal, existent or non-existent or subsistent, determinate or indeterminate, conceivable or inconceivable, that enters or can enter into philosophical discussion must be directly expressible or indirectly suggestible. Example by words like contradictory, conceivable, square, circle, meaningless. By some words or another, it can be at once seen that padartha is a wide term for philosophy. So it summarizes the importance of the term padartha in Indian philosophy, as explained here. Okay. So before getting into the Sāṃkhya utilization of the term guna as a padartha, as an ontological padartha, um, as an ontological category, we will look at some parallel philosophies, um, uh, starting with the Vaisheshika darshana and which is also adapted by its polar parity darshana, the Jñāna, and eventually the merged version of the Jñāya Vaisheshika, the Navya Jñāya. Okay, so here the basic ontological categorization is in terms of um, the manifest category of uh, inherent existential reality and other than existential realities. Okay, let's not deep dive into the ontologies of these Vaisheshika Tattvas. We have a separate session on Vaisheshika Darshana itself, but here I just wanted to focus on the guna element here. So the guna element is one of the main categories of padarthas. In terms of its ontology, here guna is used as a set of static properties that inhere exclusively in substances. So the main padartha is called as dravya, which is the main substance, substantial entities. There are 9 dravya padarthas as far as the Vaisheshika Darshana goes, and within these 9 padarthas, around 24 qualities have been identified. So here guna is used as an attribute or a quality, and there are the Vaisheshika identifies around 24 qualities, and they are more or like static properties which inhere with the substance. So what we mean by inhere or samavaya is a kind of relationship. We'll deep dive when we get into the concept of relationships within Vaisheshika. Okay, so along with dravya, karma, the samanya, vishesha, and samavaya, which is the inherence, guna forms one of the main categories of ontological entities. Okay, but here guna is used more in terms of an attribute. Among the 4 different meanings in Vaisheshika, it is used more as an attribute. Okay, so again there's a reference from Tarka Sangraha, which says that the supreme good results from the knowledge produced by a particular dharma of the essence of the predicable substance, attribute, actions, genus, species, and the combination by means of the resemblance and difference. So this is what Tarka Sangraha classifies the various padarthas as far as the Jñāya Vaisheshika Darshana goes. The next related concept we should understand that as far as the Vaisheshika Darshana goes, the 3 major concepts are related. One is the concept of neyatvam or knowability. The second is the concept of abhideyatvam or nameability. So knowability, nameability, and astitvam or existentiality. These are the 3 major dimensions in which these categories are explained or analyzed in Vaisheshika philosophy. We need to deep dive each of these when we get into the Vaisheshika philosophy, but we need to understand that these 6 categories of dravya, guna, karma, samanya, vishesha, and samavaya are basically categorized or classified in terms of these dimensional attributes of knowability, existentiality, and nameability. Okay, so there are scriptural references from that, but I will not spend time on that now here. I just displayed it here, but we will deep dive on each of these meanings from Padartha Sangraha and the other texts of Jñāya Vaisheshika when we deep dive on the subject. Okay, but I just wanted to do the context here. The padarthas have knowability, nameability, and existentiality. So these are very, very important concepts we need to understand not only for Vaisheshika but other philosophies also. So again, in Vaisheshika, we saw guna is used more as an qualitative attribute. So it's used as a quality in terms of an attribute. Okay, so as a property that inheres in the substance or in the dravya padartha, and almost these are some of the listed gunas or properties as far as Vaisheshika philosophy goes, and which is borrowed by jñāna as well as in various Vedanta darshanas also. So we will deep dive when we get there. So like Rupa, Rasa, Gandha, Sparsha, these are all called as guna in terms of attribute within Vaisheshika philosophy. But some of them like Rupa, Rasa, Gandha will also be used in Sāṃkhya ontology. We will see how that how they differ there from what Vaisheshika does when we get there. Okay, interestingly, Sāṃkhya as a countable number is also a quality identified in Vaisheshika. Okay, so then there is a dimension, there is separateness, conjunction, disjunction. All these are different attributes that inheres in different kinds of dravyas. So we will deep dive when we get there. So the context here is guna in Vaisheshika philosophy, which is also very ancient philosophy and one of the Śāstradarśanas. It is the term guna is used more in terms of inhering attribute, okay, or a qualitative property that inheres in a dravya or a substance. With this context of how guna is used in Vaisheshika philosophy, we will come back to Samkhya philosophy, where from an ontological perspective, there are again three major dimensions, just as we saw three major dimensions of nameability, extensibility, and in Vaisheshika philosophy. Here there are three major concepts here, which is sorry. So which is including in terms of its tattva, bhava, and as well as its phala. Okay, so the three gunas. When you talk about guna, unlike in the Vaisheshikas, where there are multiple attributes identified, here guna in Sāṃkhya are only three. Okay, so these three are the sattva, rajas, and tamas, and they do not just mean an attribute as in Vaisheshika. We will deep dive what it means. Okay, and these three gunas, okay, these three gunas are instrumental in the manifestation process of a three-dimensional ontological categories. So which is tattva, bhava, and the phala around it. Okay, so tattva itself has around 25 evolutes. Bhava, there are different dispositions, or around 8 plus dispositions, and the phala is a combination of tattva and bhava based on the triguna operation of the trigunas. Okay, so now we will look at how the Samkhya Karika 45 and 46 explain this. So dispassion results in observation in absorption into prakriti. From passion driven by rajas results transmigration. From power comes non impediment of desires, and from the reverse, weakness results the contrary, impediment. This is a creation of the intellect and is characterized by ignorance, incapacity, contentment, and attainment. Due to the mutual suppression of the gunas, due to their inequality, the different forms add up to 50. Okay, so there are around three gunas, and three gunas, rajas, tamas, and sattva guna, how they help in generate in influencing based on the 24 tattvas and the bhavas into around 50 plus derivations. So we will deep dive each of them as we go along with the scriptural testimonies for that. Okay. Then Yukti Deepika again explains us. Thus, the creation of the tattvas and the creation of the bhavas have been explained. These are considered to be the form of rupa, and the activity pravritti of the manifest. The result phala will now be described. So it starts explaining how the tattvas and the bhavas, the two major category entry, based on the operation of the trigunas, results in different phalas. Okay, that is what Yukti Deepika, very very important treatise, which is a commentatorial treatise, which does. We already saw what these each of these treatises, the author of this and other things, right? Moving on, we'll see some other textual references in Tattva Samasa Sutram, which is historically attributed to Kapila Maharishi by Orthodox schools of Sankhya. So there is a reference in the form of a aphorism where trigunyam, or qualifiedness, or triple nature, or triple qualities are identified. So guna in Sankhya is always related to triple nature. Okay, so that is what is referred by Kapila Maharishi in his Tattva Samasa Sutram. Okay, and then let us move into what Sri Ishwara Krishna in his Samkhya Karika states. Okay, so first let us look at the Samkhya Karika 12 and 13, where it says that the attributes are of the nature of pleasure, pain, delusion. They serve the purpose of the character of illumination, action, and restraints. And the three attributes are gunas. See, I wanted to highlight one point. Whenever we look at these translations, so this term guna is in English is translated either as a quality or attribute or property or power, based on different scholars and based on the context in which they want to translate. Here, Shri Maho Padya Ganganadja, who was translated many of these principal texts, uses the term attributes here. So the attributes are of the nature of pleasure, pain, and delusion. So pleasure, pain, and delusion are how these three gunas have been classified or translated by the author here, by the translator here. So they serve the purpose of the character of illumination, action, and restraint. So illumination, action, and restraint. So Sattva Guna is for illumination, Rajo Guna is for action, and Tamo Guna is for restraint. Okay, and the three attributes. So this is how they define it. They are mutually and supporting and productive and cooperative. So how they are all interrelated. They are not islands by themselves. By all the three gunas are operating together holistically. The sattva attribute is held to be buoyant and illuminating. The rajas attribute exciting and mobile, and the tamas attribute sluggish and enveloping. Their functioning is for a single purpose, like that of the lamp. Okay, so this is how Samkhya Karika mentions as translated by Ganganadja. Okay, then we look at another verse from Samkhya Karika, which says that the higher evolution abounds in the sattva attribute, and the lower evolution abounds in the tamas attribute, and the middle evolution abounds in the rajas attribute. All these comprising the entire universe, from the Brahma down to the tuft of grass. This is again a very important concept highlighted by Sri Ishwara Krishna in Samkhya Karika and translated by Ganganadja. What it means is that the three gunas operate in three degrees of freedom. The highest degree is by sattva, and the middle layer is by rajas, and the lowest layer is by tamas. And all these three tired gunas, or three layered gunas, is responsible for all the manifestations of all tattvas, right from the divine realm to the lowest levels in the hierarchy of the phenomenal existence. Okay. Okay, so with this context from how Sankhya Karika explains it, let us take a back step and then look at how the term Trigunatva or the triple nature, right, is used in in earlier sources. Here, for example, the Atharva Veda states thus. The 10th mandala of the Atharva Veda states that him who knows the city of Brahma, neither the sight nor prana desert before the old age. He is known as Purusha, the impregnable city of gods, as 9 doors and 8 chakras, containing a golden vessel which is turned towards heaven and suffused with light. Okay, and behold now the lotus with 9 gates encircled with 3 strands. Within this is a great marble, Yaksham carrying the Atma. This it is of which the knowers of Brahman have the knowledge. So here the 3 stands, which is the Tribirgar Gune. So, there is a reference for the 3 stands. We saw that Guna, one of the meanings is in terms of strands or sutra or threads, right? So that is what is being used here in the Atharva Veda. The Atharva Veda mantra stated here. So in the Atharva Veda mantra, the Deha Atmanasya, or the body of the soul, is supported by containing what is called as the Navadvara, 9 doors. So these 9 doors are somewhere related to the concept of gunas. We'll see when we get there. Okay. Again, elsewhere in the Atharva Veda, there is a comparison of the 9 doors in the body with the lotus with 9 apertures, which in turn are encircled by 3 strands. Okay, how these Atharva Veda mantra are related, are using related to the concept of the 3 strands or 3 gunas, is what is highlighted here in this Atharva Veda mantra that we just saw. So I wanted to highlight that part also. That's why I have marked it there. Okay. Similarly, the early ends of the doctrine of Triguna, triple qualities of the natures. So the triguṇāpadārthas can be found in the sacred Upanishads. Okay, like the śāstradarśīka Upanishad, belonging to the Krishna Yajurveda Samhita. For example, the refers of Trivritam, or triple enveloped. In the following mantra corresponds to the Triguna triple qualities. Okay, so the mantra says that they saw him as having 1 rim, 3 tires, 16 ends, 50 spokes, 20 fasteners, 6 sets of 8, one bondage of numerous forms, 3 different paths, and a single delusion, that is the case of the two. So here the Trivritam, or the 3 tires, or the 3 hierarchical. We saw that higher, middle and the lower realms or hierarchies as one of the references of the term guna, which is responsible for all the manifestations in the world. Here, the Trivritam is referred as part of the Upanishad here, where the gunas are can be traced, where the concept of guna can be traced. Another mantra from the same Upanishad, which says that one he goat, the brightness, the birthless individual soul. Indeed, while enjoying sleep with one she goat, the birthless nature, which has red, white, and black colors, and which gives birth to many offsprings of its own kind. Another he goat, the individual soul, leaves her when she has been enjoyed. Okay, this is again a very very important mantra from the Upanishad, which says which talks about the three colors of three gunas here. Okay, so the three gunas are referenced by three colors: red, white, and black colors. So here guna is used in terms of three colors. Okay, just as the concept of colors is used in modern physics also, in terms of talking about the standard uh, ontological categories in terms of the fundamental particles, where we talk about quarks and the subparticles in terms of the colors, etc. Right here also the three colors are referred to. I mean, the three gunas are represented in terms of three colors: white, red, and black, uh, which give birth to many offsprings of its own kind. So here it talks about ontological duality in terms of he goat and she goat, okay, which is the Purusha and the Prakriti Tattva. So one of the earlier references to the Sāṃkhya Tattva of Purusha Prakriti, and how the Prakriti Tattva has within it the three colors or the three gunas, and that is responsible for the manifestation with the aid of the Purusha Tattva. So that is what is highlighted in the Shvetashvetra Upanishad here. So interestingly, the triple qualities is also referred in the Shvetashvetra Upanishad, symbolizing the same trifold colors. Okay, like Krishna black, Lohita red, and Shukla white. So, here black corresponds to Tamoguna, Lohita redness or pinkness corresponds to Rajoguna, because red blood and the vitality or the vibration, and Shukla, which is the purity, corresponds to the Sattva Guna. Okay. So, while taking these Upanishad references, we can also look at what Sri Bhartrhari in his Vakyapadya, which is a grammatical treatise, which talks about Shabdadvaita Vedanta, Shabdadvaita Siddhanta. So, which is one of the most important treatises on Sanskrit grammar, and with a very philosophical or metaphysical bent towards it. So Vakyapadya is a very very important treatise from a philosophical as well as from a linguistic perspective. Here, let us look at what Vakyapadya says on gunas. Of the qualities, shabda, etc., which constitute the essence of everything, in each one are found the qualities sattva, etc. So we find that Vakyapadya uses the quality gunas as sattva, etc., direct references. Okay, so this is also very ancient philosophy, much older than the Vedanta schools of even the Kevala Advaita, which is one of the earliest Vedanta schools. Okay, So we see how Sankhya term guna as its references in various earlier scriptures and texts as well. Of course, Vakyapadiya might be later than Sāṃkhyadarśana, but just to give a context here, we are looking at it. Next, coming back to the core Sankhya monographs, the Prakarana Granthas of Sankhya. Okay. So we will understand the main definitions according to the Samkhya philosophy. Here, Ishwar Krishna in the following verse um, defines the triple qualities thus: the attributes are of the nature of pleasure, pain, and delusions. They serve the purpose of the character of illumination, action, and restraint, and the three attributes gunas. They are mutually subjugative. We already saw this for Samkhya Karika of 12 and 13. Okay, so then this also we saw that. I think, sorry, it's just a repetition. I just to know it here. Okay, then um, let us see the interrelationship, how these three gunas operate. So we have as identified in the table here, the tamo guna, the rajo guna, and the sattva guna. Okay, the tamo guna from etymologically source is based on tamas or passivity, tamaha darkness, and as means to be. So tamas means tama and as. So as means to be or to exist. Okay, rajas is etymologically derived from becoming or activity, which is derived from ranj or to move, and as to be. Okay, and sattva is sat and twa. So this is how etymologically the three terms tamas, rajas, and sattva is derived. Okay, in terms of the potency or the shakti, tamas correspond to icha shakti. Okay, and uh, while rajas tamas to kriya shakti, and this sattva corresponds to jnana shakti. So this is how the potency aspect of guna is highlighted. So icha shakti by tamo guna, then kriya shakti by the Icha Shakti is the will or volition, okay, by Tamoguna. Kriya Shakti is the potency or the power to act. Uh, so which is represented by the Rajoguna, and the Jnana Shakti is the serenity of Sattva. So Jnana Shakti is the wisdom quotient, or the potency of wisdom or enlightenment, which is provided by the sattva guna. Okay, and theologically they are theolized by the polar parity of the divine mother and divine father in terms of rudra and raudri for tamoguna, and brahma and brahmi for rajoguna, and Vishnu or Vaishnavi for Sattva Guna. Of course, this is from um, a theological aspect of how the Trimurtis of Rudra, Brahma, and Vishnu have been identified with Trigunas. Of course, there is a difference in terms of the Shaiva corpuses versus the Vaishnava corpuses in mapping these. The Shaiva corpuses might map Rudra with Sattva Guna, and Tamo Guna with Vishnu. The reverse of what is depicted here. What is depicted here is more from a Vaishnava Sampradaya, the Vaishnava Puranic scriptures, and the agamic scriptures, whereas the Saiva scriptures will just reverse between the tamas and sattva aspects. So the Brahma is common to both, associated with the rajas. Okay. Srimad Bhagavata Purana, Mahapuranam, for example, says that, my Lord, you are the same person who in the beginning created this material world by his personal external energy. After the creation of this world of the three gunas, sattva, rajas, and tamas, you appear to have entered it, although in fact you have not. Okay, so this is a very important verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam, where it is, the Lord is glorified as the one responsible for the three gunas through his Shakti. So the Shakti, so the we saw, while talking about the relationship between the Purusha and Prakriti, they get into an unbound wedlock, right? So there, the Shiva aspect, or the Narayana aspect of corresponds to the Purusha Tattva, and the Shakti aspect or the Narayani aspect corresponds to the the Prakriti, the Mula Prakriti, or mm, the primordial creatrix function, right? So that is highlighted here in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Lord Purusha, through its counterpolar counterpart, the divine feminine energy of Shakti, is responsible for the three gunas, for sattva, rajas, and tamas. Okay, and here it also says that you appear to have entered it, although in fact you have not. So here it talks about the transcendent and the immanent nature, and also the vivarta and the parinamavada. So whether here this sloka refers to the vivartavada, where the Purusha, which is supposed to be transcendent, appears to inhere, or entered. That's why it is called as Purusha. We saw the term Purusha means that which enters, right? So that which pervades or enters the Prakriti. So that is a virtual, or that is a Vivartavada, is what is highlighted from Sri Bhagavat Mahapurana, which is more in line with the Advaitic school. Okay, and we also want to see another sloka from the Srimad Bhagavata Mahapurana, where again it says, again and again I offer my obeisance, O all auspicious transcendental personality, as the Lord of goodness. You give pleasure in contact with the mode of passion. You appear most fearful, and you also associate with the mode of ignorance. Okay, so how this is a very Advaitic concept of one. It says that there's a Vivartava Vada, or there's an apparent entry of Purusha Tattva into Prakriti, through its and the manifestation of the three gunas, and based on that the entire ontological evolutes. Okay, and then how all this is enveloped by a layer of ignorance. Okay, okay, again this is again the same thing. Next we'll move on to an agama. So we saw some references from the Atharva Veda. We saw some references from the Upanishads. Okay, then we saw references from the Purana. Now we'll look at what one of the agamas, which is part of the Pancharatra agama, basically the Lakshmi Tantra, says. Okay, which is Vaishnava agama. Okay, she said, I am Narayani, possessed of eternal, flawless, infinite, and beneficial attribute. Verily, Vishnu's supreme being. I am regarded as exempt from limitations of space and time or form. Consciousness, samvid, alone is the essence of my being, literally form, whereas Aishwarya, etc., are my attributeless gunas. This distinction is effected by my will alone, or my Icha Shakti, without any aid or directive. And the polarized state is said to consist of the knowledge Aishwarya and Shakti. Now I will describe my limited manifestation comprising Vijnana, Aishwarya, and Shakti. So Vijnana, Aishwarya, and Shakti can in one way be related to the three gunas. Okay. Let's see how. In accordance with my sovereign, literally incapable of being subordinated will. So the will, the Icha Shakti, when I am inscrutable, become manifest, active, my form voluntarily undergoes a mutation, an evolution within the essential triad of knowledge, etc. Just as the transparent juice of the sugarcane assumes the form of molasses, Buddha, so does the transparent knowledge evolve into sattva, the primordial attribute. Similarly, my Aishwarya develops into Rajas and my Shakti develops into Tamas. So we see that how the three gunas are mapped theologically here as three aspects of the Devi, Mahalakshmi. Okay, so in terms of the Aishwarya Shakti, okay, and the Aishwarya Shakti and the Vijnana, right? The three major components of or the three major aspects of Mahalakshmi. The Vijnana Shakti is the Sattva, the Aishwarya is the Rajas, and um, the Shakti is Tamas. So very interesting. Shakti is related to the Tamas, or the dark energy. Okay, which is also the Maya Shakti. Okay. Oh Shakara, these three primordial or phenomenal attributes are called the complex of the three gunas, triguṇya. During the creation, this triguṇya changes into a state where Rajas predominates. Okay, so during the cosmological genesis, Rajas, which is the actual activity, predominates. During sustenance of creation, it is dominated by sattva, and at the time of destruction by tamas. Okay, so how the three phases of cosmogenesis, of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. Okay, so in each of these phases, one of these gunas predominates. Okay, so O Shakra, the three primordial or phenomenal attributes are called the complex of the three gunas, triguṇya. During the creation, this triguṇya changes into a state where Rajas predominates. So particularly, it's logical, right? During creation, the activity, the power of Kriya Shakti, where Rajas predominates. During sustenance, so where a state of stability is there, then the Sattva Guna predominates. And at the time of destruction or by Tamas, so it is evolution is one process, sustenance is another process, and dissolution or involution is the third process, third part of this cycle, right? So during involution, the tamoguna predominates. Okay, O Purandara, I adopt as my basis, that is the focus, my creative urge upon the phenomenal attribute gunas in order to undertake creation, maintenance, and destruction of the universe. Although I am attributeless, I alone voluntarily preside over the gunas and turn the wheel of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Okay, this is again a very important thing of how the three phases of theogenesis, which corresponds to the cosmogenesis, of creation, sustenance, and dissolution, is managed by the power called Shri Mahalakshmi, according to Lakshmi Tantra, through the three gunas. okay, and which corresponds to the vijnana, aishwarya, and shakti, and how they are responsible for the three phases of creation, sustenance, and dissolution. Okay. Additionally, the Lakshmi Tantra, which is a Pancharatra Agama, which is very popular with Vishishtadvaita Darshana, also can be interpreted from a Advaitic, but where it talks about the Nirgunatva. So, Guna, Saguna, Nirguna. There also the term Guna is used in Vedanta, where it talks about Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. Okay, particularly Kevala Advaita. Other schools doesn't explicitly make this split of Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman, and some of these darshanas of Vedanta also refute the concept of splitting between Saguna and Nirguna. However, Kevala Advaita Vedanta has this categorization. Okay, here the verses from Lakshmi Tantra corresponds to the Nirgunatva. So, although it says that from Paramarthika point of view, I am Nirguna, so I am beyond all these gunas. So when I say nirguna, it does not mean I do not have gunas. I am not bound by these gunas. That's how we have to represent nirgunatva. So when I am beyond these gunas, although I am beyond this guna from a paramarthika point of view, but from a vyavaharika point of view, I am responsible for all the three gunas, and through these through gunas for the entire creation, sustenance, and the dissolution of the phenomenal world or the empirical reality. Okay, so Lakshmi Tantra. So this is again we are integrating three major darshanas. Vaisheshika darshana, the Sāṃkhya darshana, where the three gunas are corresponding to rajas, tamas, and sattva gunas, and then the core Vishishtadvaita darshana, the agama corresponds directly to the Vishishtadvaita darshana of Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. Also, it has a Advaitic interpretation in terms of Nirgunatva. Okay, particularly from a Paramarthika aspect, and Sagunatva in terms of the three gunas, in terms of the Vyavaharika Sattva. So, Kevala Advaita, Vishishta Advaita, and Sāṃkhya Darshanas are integrated in this one text from Lakshmi Tantra. With all these references from various scriptures, right from the Vedas to the Agamas to the Puranas to the Upanishads to the Mula Granthas of Sāṃkhya, we will now look at what the contemporary saints and acharyas and scholars have been saying. For example, let us look to what Swami Vivekananda says in his complete works. Okay. In one of his lectures addressed at Colombo, lectures from Colombo to Almora, so Swami Vivekananda says, first of all, what is sattva? We know that according to the Sāṃkhya, and it has been admitted by all our sects of philosophy, the body is composed of three sorts of materials, not qualities. So he highlights that here Sāṃkhya corresponds to the three major aspects of within the body, but it is not just an attribute as used in Vaisheshika. Okay, it is general idea that sattva, rajas, and tamas are qualities, not at all, not qualities, but the materials of the universe. And with the ahara shuddhi, when the food is pure, the sattva material becomes pure. The one theme of the Vedanta is to get the sattva. As I have told you, the soul is already pure and perfect, and it is in accordance to the Vedanta covered up by the rajas and tamas particles. The sattva particles are the most luminous, and the effulgence of the soul penetrates through them as easily as light through glass. So, if the rajas and tamas particles go and leave the sattva particles, in the state of power and purity of the soul will appear and leave the soul pure, more manifest. So, here Swami Vivekananda integrates the Sāṃkhyadarshana's use of guna in terms of its three gunas with the Advaitic Vedantic philosophy. And he says that the guna here is not just a quality or an attribute or a lakshana, just as used in Nyaya Vaisheshika, but here in Sāṃkhya and Vedanta, it means the core material, the prakriti, the core aspect of prakriti through which the entire manifestation takes place. Next, let us take a look of one of the greatest scholars in contemporary times, Sri Surendranath Dasgupta, who was created his magnum opus, History of Indian Philosophy, running into multiple volumes. There he states this in his volume 1. These three types of ultimate subtle entities are technically called guna in Samkhya philosophy. Guna in Sanskrit has three meanings, namely the quality, rope, not primary. These entities, however, are substances and not mere qualities. But it may be mentioned in this connection that in Samkhya philosophy there is no separate existence of qualities. Okay, this is again a very important point. Earlier we saw that how the term Sankhya has different meanings. Okay, so that is what is highlighted here. Okay, in terms of quality, it used as a lakshana, and then it is used as a sutra, okay, etc., right? So so these entities, however, are substances and are not mere qualities. So just as Swami Vivekananda, here Dasgupta also highlights that the usage of the term guna in Sankhya is not just to represent a qualitative attribute or a property, as how it is used in Vaisheshika, but it has a more deeper context from its ontology. Okay, but it may be mentioned in this connection that in Sankhya philosophy there is no separate existence of qualities. Okay, so there is no separate guna or attribute aspect as explained in the Nyaya Vaisheshika darśana. When it comes to Sankhya, Sankhya builds within itself uh, the gunas and the bhavas. We saw that tattva, guna, and bhava are the three major padarthas, right? So here there is no separate guna as a line item identified as a separate padartha for from a attribute point of view. That is what is the highlight given by the Sri Dasgupta here. So, but it may be mentioned in the connection that in Samkhya philosophy there is no separate existence of qualities. It holds that each and every unit of quality is but a unit of substance. We saw that how quality uh, and substance have an inherent relationship in Vaisheshika. Similar idea is there, but it is not just an attribute, it is more than that. Okay, what we call quality is but a particular manifestation or appearance of a subtle entity. So it is a manifestation of a subtle power or a potency. Okay, that is what the Icha, Kriya, and Jnana Shaktis we talked about. Things do not possess quality, but quality signifies merely the manner in which the substance reacts. Any object we see seems to possess many qualities, but the Sankhya holds that corresponding to each and every new unit of quality, however fine and subtle it may be, there is a corresponding subtle entity, the reaction of which is interpreted by us as quality. Okay, this is again very important concept um, emphasized by Sri Dasgupta, where he says that while Vaisheshika and various other darshanas talks about multiple qualities, 24 qualities, 20 plus qualities, etc., Sankhya abstracts all these attributes or qualities within a threefold gunatva or trigunatva, but there it is not mere attribute, it represents the subtle potencies which come out of it. Okay, so any object or any dravya or substance has multiple qualities, right? And all these qualities are manifestations from triple potencies. Okay, by the by dominance of sattva over rajas and tamas, or by the dominance of rajas over sattva and tamas, or the dominance of one over the other. Okay, all three are there, but one is more dominant than other. So this permutation of combination of these three gunas is what creates various attributes or bhavas or qualities. Okay, So any object we see seems to possess many qualities, but the Sāṃkhya holds that the corresponding to each and every new unit of quality, however fine and subtle it may be, there is a corresponding subtle entity. The subtle potency, okay, is the guna, the reaction of which is interpreted by us as a quality. This is true not only of qualities of external objects but also of mental qualities as well. So both extra mental and mental qualities apply here. Okay, these ultimate entities were thus called gunas, probably to suggest that they are the entities which by their various modifications manifest themselves as gunas or qualities. Okay, how the three gunas, the dominance of one over the other, permutation or combinations of the dominance creates the various qualitative attributes highlighted in the Vaisheshika. Okay, so this bridges between the Vaisheshika aspect of guna and the Sāṃkhya aspect of guna. This is true not only of qualities, external objects, but also of mental qualities as well. These ultimate entities were thus called gunas, probably to suggest they are the entities which, by their various modifications, manifest themselves as gunas or qualities. The subtle entities may also be called gunas in the sense of ropes. Okay, so the quality, and we are also seeing the sense of rope, because they are like ropes by which the soul is chained down as if it were thought and matter. Okay, so we saw quality or the lakshana aspect of guna. Now we are seeing the rupa aspect of guna, how these trigunas and the manifestation of the dominance into various lakshanas bind the dravyas. That is what is highlighted here. That is why the strand or the sutra aspect of guna is also highlighted. So this is a very important explanation by Das Gupta, where we saw the multiple meanings of gunas have been the dots between them have been connected into a holistic meaning. Okay, so these may also be called gunas as things of secondary importance, because though permanent and indestructible, they continually suffer modification and changes by the mutual groupings and the regroupings, and thus not primarily and unalterably constant like the souls, Purusha. Okay, they are also given a secondary context because they are not eternally static or stable, but they keep on changing. These three gunas are always like a very dynamically dominating and one over the other aspects of the three gunas, and because of that various permutation combinations of attributes keep binding with the dravyas. Okay, moreover, the objects of the world process being the enjoyment and salvation of the Purusha, the matter principle, which is the Prakriti Tattva, could not naturally be regarded as being being of primary importance. But in whatever senses, we may be inclined to justify the name Guna as applied to these subtle entities. It should be borne in mind that they are substantive entities or subtle substances and not abstract qualities. Once again, they are not merely used as um, qualities or attributes in Vaisheshika. Here they represent very underlying potencies, trifold potencies in the um, Samkhya darshanas. These gunas are infinite in number. So the overall gunas are not just 25 or 24. So there are various quality or attributes. Okay, but they are all they can all be reduced to the three gunas or the three source potencies. Okay, so there are infinite, and these gunas are infinite in number, but in accordance with the three main characteristics as described above, they have been arranged in three classes or types called sattva, intelligent stuff; rajas, okay, energy stuff; and tamas, which is mass stuff. So energy, mass, and intelligence, three fundamental potencies are what constitutes the infinite qualities that inhere the dravyas or substances. Okay, this is again very a scientific way of putting the whole concept by how the three meanings of guna are highlighted as a lakshana, as a rope and also as a secondary principle, and then how these three gunas are the primary potencies. When these primary potencies manifest into multiple infinite qualities, how they bind the padarthas, I mean the dravya padarthas, is what is highlighted here by Sri Das Gupta. Okay, now let us look at Kapilopadesha. See, Kapilo is like the Sankhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna, or Sankhya Pravachana Sutra. Okay, there are, we already saw that the concepts of Sankhya are spread across the Upanishads, they are spread across the Puranas. Okay, and Agamas, etc. We saw that how they are spread out across multiple texts in the earlier session. Here we are taking the reference of Kapila Darshana in terms of Kapilopadesha, which is part of the Srimad Bhagavata Mahapuranam. So where it is stated thus. We saw that this is where the theological aspect of the theistic Sheshwara Sāṃkhyadarśane is highlighted in the Puranas. So the and Srimad Bhagavatam has a separate section for Kapilopadesha where he instructs his mother on the sacred wisdom. Okay. The supreme personality of Godhead in the supreme is the supreme soul, and he has no beginning. He is transcendental to the material modes of nature and beyond the existence of the material world. He is so the paratva, the para aspect of the divinity, which is the nirguna aspect. Okay, the transcendent aspect is identified here. He is in the perceivable everywhere because he is self-effulgent, and by his self-effulgent history, the entire creation is maintained. How he is responsible as the Parameshwara, the Ishvara Tattva, for the entire creation, sustenance, and the dissolution of the earth. We already saw how the three gunas are correspondingly responsible for the creation, sustenance, and dissolution. Okay, as is from the Lakshmi Tantra, which is a Pancharatha Agama. Here in Srimad Bhagavatam, the same point is highlighted, and it continues. Has his pastime that supreme personality of Godhead, okay, which is the Paramapurusha, here corresponding to Sriman Narayana, the greatest of the great, accepted the subtle material energy which is invested with the three material modes of nature, and which is related with Vishnu. Okay, so this takes a Vaishnavite theological interpretation of the three gunas. In terms of Paramapurusha is Mahavishnu, is consort is Mahalakshmi, and which is the Prakriti Tattva, and the three gunas are these the great modes through which the Prakriti acts. Okay, so divided into varieties by a threefold modes. So here mode aspect of the guna is highlighted. The threefold modes: material nature creates the form of the living entities, and the living entities seeing this are illusioned by the knowledge covering feature of the illusioned energy. Okay, so uh, the the three energies are not only creation, sustenance, but it also encapsulates through the Maya, through Maya Shakti. So we saw how Guna is related to Maya through Ma, or the concept of measure. Okay, divided into the varieties of a threefold modes, the material nature, which is Mola Prakriti, creates the forms of living entities. So all the jivas and the living entities seeing this are illusioned by the knowledge covering feature of the illusory energy, which is the tamoguna, which is the Maya Shakti. Okay, because of this forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of the material energy as his field of activities. and thus activated, he wrongly applies the activities to himself. So this is where the avidyavada, okay, highlighted in Kevaladvaita by Adi Shankaracharya, is presented here in Kapilovadesha, which is part of Srimad Bhagavatam, where it says that how Mahavishnu and his consort Sri Lakshmi or Narayana and Narayani are responsible for creation, maintenance, sustenance and dissolution of this universe through the power of Ichcha Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and Jnana Shakti, and through the three gunas of Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Okay, out of this, the Sattva, the Rajo Gunam is for creation, the Sattva Gunam is for sustenance, and the Tamo Gunam is for dissolution, as we saw in Lakshmi Tantra. Here, what is happening is that the avidya aspect of the so God through the goddess not only creates the world but also hides it. Okay, so even in Saiva Siddhanta we have Padaithal, Kathal, Maraital, Padaithal, Kathal, Azhithal, Maraital, and Arulal. So there is a concept of how encapsulation, which the cosmic censorship, as Stephen Hawking says. We already discussed about it, right? So is what is highlighted here. So where nature hides certain aspects of higher divinity as part of the Tamo Guna. Okay, so because of this forgetfulness, the transcendental living entity accepts the influence of material energy as this field of activities, and thus actuated, he wrongly applies activities to himself. So how the Jivatma assumes that he is responsible for everything. So the Jivatma, the Hangara Tattva, which is the self-arrogative principle, which is one of the tattvas in Sāṃkhya, is one of the evolutes of the 24 Prakriti tattvas, is responsible for self-arrogation, which creates an Anutva. So, which is in the Saiva Siddhanta called as the Anava Mala, which creates a sense of limitation and also a sense of self-arrogation, which is the Ahankara Tattva. There's a difference between Anava, which is a Mala, and Ahankara, which is a Tattva. We'll deep dive when we get there. But what is highlighted is that the Tamoguna creates a layer, a wrapper of encapsulation through its Avidya Maya Shakti. Okay, that is what is highlighted here. Okay, because of this, the Ahankara Tattva takes the Ahankara and Mamakara plays a major role, that I am responsible for anything, that ego takes control. Okay, so that is why the bound principle is always in a state of dissolution of bound between Ahankara and Mamakara. Okay, that is what is highlighted by Kapila Maharishi here. So material consciousness is the cause of one's conditional life, in which conditions are enforced upon the living entity by the material energy. Although the spirit soul does not do anything and is transcendental to the such activities, he is thus affected by conditioned life. So although Purusha is a transcendent principle, yet he appears to be bound. So Purusha as a transcendent life is the Parama Purusha, who's not bound by any of these gunas, or who's not bound by any of these activities, yet he appears to be bound because of the Maya Shakti. And when he appears to be bound, he takes a very limited role because of its Anava Mala. Okay, and because of that, there is a sense of self-arrogation. Okay, so although the spirit does not do anything and is transcendent to such activities, he is thus affected by the conditioned life. Okay, so there's a conditioned life, right? So there is avachedaka, or there is a limitation. Okay, there is a conditional clause applied due to the tamoguna, or the encapsulative power. Okay, The cause of the conditioned soul, material body and senses, the cause of the conditioned soul's material body and senses, and the senses presiding deities, the demigods, is the material nature. This is understood by the learned man. The feeling of happiness and the distress of the soul, who is transcendental by nature, are caused by the spirit soul himself. Okay, he further explains how the soul is responsible for the underlying ananda, the paramananda, which is very restricted as for to jivatma, but it is infinitely available to the Paramatma. This is what Kapilopadesha talks about in terms of guna in Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay. So next we will look at how this trifold nature is responsible for different aspects of manifestation. Okay, so it provides purity, it provides karya krama activity, it provides apavriti inertia, it provides bodha knowledge. So each of this, so icha when sattva is predominant, knowledge is predominant. Okay, so when rajas is predominant, activity, karyakrama is predominant. When tamas is dominant, inertia or apravriti is predominant. And when rajas is predominant, passion, the kama is predominant. Okay, and Anyana is prominent. I mean, there's a typo here. Anyana is prominent when tamas is prominent. So this is what is highlighted here. Okay, so how the sattva guna, rajo guna, and tamo guna are responsible for various attributable qualities like purity, goodness, light, clarity, harmony, balance, etc. Okay, illumination, lightness, joy, knowledge. So sattva aspect contributes to some of these positive attributes. And then we have the rajoguna, which is responsible for the core activity. It is also responsible for passion. It is responsible for motion. Okay, then restlessness. It is the force that agitates and energizes, driving the passive nature and into active nature. Okay, so action, ambition, desire, all these gunas or attributes are derived with the dominance of rajoguna. And tamoguna, we already saw, is inertia, darkness, ignorance. Most of the negative attributes, they are not strictly speaking negative, but appears to be negative. Obstruction, okay, heavy, etc. Okay, these are some of the examples here. Okay, so this diagram chart is helping you how the combination of all the three generates multiple gunas. So we saw that how trigunas in Sāṃkhya corresponds to the three subtle potencies, and the dominance in terms of permutation and combination of one of these three results in infinite combinations of attributes which inhere in dravyas. And the examples of how the three generates multiple qualities is what is highlighted in this chart. Okay, again tabulating these three tamoguna, rajoguna, and sattvaguna in terms of delusion, pain, so inertia, delusion, restraint, sluggishness, encapsulation, okay, are all highlighted here. Okay, inertia forms the mula from a bottom-up approach. Okay, again it can be reversed in terms of top-down approach. Okay, and it corresponds to the bhuloka and the bhumi or the earth screen, and it corresponds to black color. Rajas corresponds to apriti, pain, action, mobility, excitedness, passion. Then it corresponds to the middle aspect. Okay, and then it corresponds to the sky. Okay, the bhuvarloka. Okay, or the antariksha, and it also corresponds to the vyahriti of mid region. Okay, in terms of the Gayatri mantra, and it also corresponds to a color called, which is the red or pinkish color. Okay. Then sattva corresponds to pleasure, illumination, buoyant force, illuminate. Okay, then prakasha, I mean that is repeated here. Urdhava, higher, and heaven, etc. It corresponds to the Swargaloka and the Swaha Vyahriti in terms of the Gayatri mantra. So how all these three gunas are responsible, are mutually subjugate functions. So they mutually subjugate their functionalities. Okay, they are mutually supporting functions. They support each other, and mutually productive functions. How they are responsible for producing various other attributes, and mutually cooperative. So I mean, this is just to say that the three gunas are not three different islands, but they are very mutually holistic in their cooperation and in their supporting to each other. Okay. So Srimad Devi Bhagavata Purana, Mahapurana, which is again a very important Purana uh, of the Shakta. So we saw the Mahapuranas when we talk about scriptures, Vaishnava Puranas, Saiva Puranas, and the Shakta Puranas. So Devi Bhagavata Mahapurana is a Shakta Purana, where Sri Brahma instructs thus: all the attributes are mutual consorts, all go everywhere. That is our omnipresence. Sattva is a consort of Rajas, Rajas is a consort of Sattva. Both these Rajas and Sattvas are the consorts of Tamas, and Tamas is the consort of both Sattva and Rajas. The first union or disunion of these has never been seen. Okay, so this is a very, very, very important concept highlighted by the Devi Bhagavata Purana, where it says is these three constituents or three potencies or three gunas do not alone. Okay, they are so interdependent on each other, twintles, so they are not airtight compartments, but they are so mutual, and one is a consort of the other two. So this is how the Trinity principle of one God and two Devis. So one male deity and two other female consorts to them is what is highlighted here. Okay, we see Bhama and Rukmani for Krishna. So Valli and Devana for with Subramanya Muruga, and Purana and Pushkala with the Shasta, okay, and Siddhi and Buddhi with Ganesha. So and Ganga and Parvati with Shiva. So all of the deities in Hindu pantheon have depicted to have two wives. Okay, and the male god with the two wives. Okay, they are deeper esoteric concepts where one of the interpretations in terms of where one presents the sattva guna and other the polar parity of the dual consorts of rajas and tamas. Okay, this is one way. And from a yogic aspect, that the same trinity corresponds to the the three major channel nadis. Okay, so Idagalai, Pingalai, and Sushubna nadis. So the Idagalai and Pingalai form the consorts, divine consorts for the Sushumna nadi or Surumani nadi. Okay, so we will get there when we talk about the yoga aspects. Okay, so what is highlighted here is that the three gunas are mutually interdependent. They are not airtight, and they are responsible for the entire manifestation. Okay, the Sāṃkhya Tattva Kaumudi is a very, very important independent, Prakarana Granthas as a Bhashya. Okay, by Vachaspati Mishra. So in Sāṃkhya Tattva Kaumudi, which is a bhashya of Vachaspati Mishra. Vachaspati Mishra is again a very interesting character. He is one of the main acharyas in the Vedanta, particularly the Kevala Advaita Vedanta, and is responsible for the Bhāratīya Prakriya, the Bhāratīya branch of the Kevala Advaita's different schools, right? Bhāratīya is one of the branches, okay, which focuses on one of the interpretations of Kevala Advaita. And he is also Sarvadarshana Bhashyakara, who has written bhashyas on almost all the Shad-darshanas, just as Bhāratīya on the Vedanta Brahma Sutra, as a commentary on the commentary of Shankara Bhashya. Similarly, on the commentary of Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, he has written his commentary on the Yoga Darshana. Similarly, here on for Sāṃkhya, on the Samkhya Karika of Ishvara Krishna, he has written his commentary. Okay, here Vachaspati Mishra states this. Having thus described their functions, the author proceeds to describe the method of their operation. They are mutually subjugative, their operation and supporting and productive and cooperative. The term vritti at the end of the compound is to be constructed with each member of the compound, and thus the compound is to be resolved into the 4 terms. Okay, so the 4 terms are anyona bhavrityata, anyona ashraya vrityata, and anyonya janavrityata, and anyona mithuna vrityata. So now to explain mutually subjugative, the attributes are so constituted that when one is brought into the play for some purpose, it subjugates the other. The sattva attribute attains its calm state only after having subdued the rajas and tamas attributes. So we saw that how all the 3 are supporting each other, and one is dominant and one becomes like the male deity, and the other 2 becomes their female consorts, right? That what was theologically explained there is given a more deeper metaphysical science behind it. The sattva attribute attains the calm state only after having subdued the rajas and tamas attributes. Similarly, the rajas attribute in its turn attains the agitated state after having subdued the sattva and the tamas attributes, and the tamas attribute attains the sluggish state only after having subdued the sattva and rajas attributes. Mutually supporting. So this is the first case where what was earlier defined as the anyona abhibhava vritti. So is what is highlighted by the mutual subjugate. The second is mutually supporting, so which is the anyona ashya vrittaha. So when you say mutually supporting, through the epithet, I mean, though the epithet is not applicable here in the sense of the container and the contained, so it does not reply in the container contained relationship, yet what is meant by the support ashraya here is that the operation of one is dependent upon the other. Okay, so this is again a very important point where the sattva, rajas and tamas do not form a container relationship where one is contained inside the other. One is a container and the other 2 are contained. Such an hierarchy is not strictly meant in the when we talk about the mutual supporting. Here the support or the ashraya does not mean a strict container contained relationship. It only represents that there's a dependency layers of one is dependent on the other. For instance, the sattva attribute helps the rajas and tamas attribute through the help of activity and restraint. which are the functions of rajas and tamas attributes. Or else the sattva attribute by itself, without the help of rajas, would remain inert and never be moved to action. Okay, so those sattva cannot act on its own. It needs some aspect of rajas and to activate it, but also to control it, it needs some amount of tamas. Similarly, the rajas attribute helps the other two by its activity or mobility through the help of illumination and restraint, and the tamas attribute helps the other two by its restraint through the help of illumination and activity. Okay, so this is the second meaning of anyona ashraya vritaha. Okay, the third aspect is mutually productive. That is to say, one can produce its effects only when resting on the other two. Okay, so one can dominate only with the support of the, or by resting on the other two. That is what is meant by anyonya janavritaha, mutually productive. So ja means productive, right? Anyonya janavritaha means mutually productive dependence or whatever it is, right? That is to say, one can produce its effects only when resting on the other two. By production here is meant a modification. Okay, and this is always the same character as the parent attribute. So remember, we will deep dive into it from cosmogenesis point of view. Samkhya philosophy talks about satkaryavada. So the effect is not something created out of thin air. It's not, but it is pre-existent in the sattva, in its, in the cause. So satkaryavada says that the effect is passive or latent in the cause, and so it is in a potent state in the karana. So that is the karana karya sambandha between the cause and the effect is in terms of satkarya vada. That is what is highlighted here. Okay. For instance, sattva attribute helps the rajas and tamas attributes through the help of activity and restraint, which are the functions of rajas and tamas attributes. Or else the sattva attributes by itself, without the help of rajas, would remain inert and never be moved to action. Similarly, the rajas attribute helps the other two by its activity or mobility through the help of illumination and restraint, and the tamas attribute helps the other two by its restraint through the help of illumination activity. This is the second aspect of the ashraya, or the support nature. Finally, we move on to the third, which we just talked about, the mutually productive. That is to say, one can produce its effects only when resting on the other. By production here is meant the modification that is always this, the same character as the parent. So the satkaryavada is highlighted here. Okay, same parent attribute. This is the reason why this modification is not regarded as cost produced. What brings it and about not being essentially different from itself, nor is it non-eternal or transient. There being no merging of it into anything essentially different from itself. So which means the law of conservation of energy is what Satkaryavada highlights here. Mutually cooperative, that is to say, they are mutually concomitant, not existing apart from one another. The particle cha. So so this is a commentary on the Sankhya Karika. So the particle cha has the cumulative force in support of the above. We have the following Smriti text. All the attributes are mutual consorts, all omnipresent. Sattva is the consort of rajas, rajas of sattva, both of these again of tamas, which latter again of both sattva and rajas. The first conjunction or separation of these has never been perceived. So this is from the Devi Bhagavatam 3.8. We just saw this in the earlier slide. For example, this is the Devi Bhagavatam slide, sloka. That sloka is referred in one of the main commentatorial text, which is the Sāṃkhya Tattva Kaumudi by Vachaspati Mishra, okay, which is a very important Prakarana Grantha Bhashyas in Sāṃkhya. So the interrelationship between these three gunas is very beautifully highlighted by Vachaspati Mishra in this following. explanation that we just saw. Okay, so the next we see the how different tattvas and manifest and how they are manifestation of Mahavishnu, and then they correspond to different kosha, and they correspond to different kalyana gunas. Okay, so the manas, mind, mahat, intellect, and jivatman. Okay, so Sri Aniruddha, Sri Pradyumna, Sri Sankarshana. So these are the sattva, rajas, and tamas aspects. The Maya kosha, the Sakti kosha, and the Shakti kosha. Oh, sorry, I think there's a typo here. Okay, and Shakti, Aishwarya, and Jnana. How the three gunas correspond to the three Kalyana gunas: Tejas, Virya, and Bala. Okay, and in the Shanta and Unmesha are the Shaiva aspects of it. Okay, so I'll complete this slide and again I'll represent it. So Sri Mahavishnu takes three forms: Aniruddha and his consort, Vasudeva and his consort, Sankarshana and his consort. Okay, this aspect is highlighted in the Vaishnava Agamas, both the Vaikanasa Agamas and the Pancharatra Agamas in different ways. Okay, so the Tattva of Manas and Mahat Buddhi and Ahankara corresponds to Aniruddha, Vasudeva, and Sankarshana, and they correspond to the three gunas. Okay, then Kapilopadesha, Sri Bhagavata Purana says that the mode of gunas, the mode of goodness, which is a clear, sober status of understanding the personality of Godhead and which is generally called Vasudeva or consciousness, becomes manifest in the Mahat Tattva. The threefold Ahankara, the sources of gross elements, the senses and the mind is identical with them because it is their cause. It is known by the name of Sankarshana, who is directly the Lord Ananta with 1,000 heads. The mind of the living entity is known by the name of Lord Aniruddha, the supreme ruler of the senses. He possesses the bluish black form resembling a lotus flower growing in the autumn. He is found slowly by the yogis. So, how the three gunas corresponds to the various tattvas and the various avatars, Vyuha avatars of Mahavishnu is what is highlighted in the Bhagavata Mahapurana as part of the Kapilopadesha. Okay, with this we conclude the session on how the three gunas are handled in Sāṃkhyadarśana, and we compared it with Jñāna Vaisheshika with references from various scriptures, including the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas, the Agamas, as well as the Prakarana Granthas of Sāṃkhyadarśana. So with this, I conclude today's session. We'll catch up with the subsequent sessions. Okay. Thanks for your patient listening, and as always, I request you to please like, share these videos, and share your constructive criticism and feedback to improve upon these sessions for the future topics. Okay. Om Shanti. Thank you. I close the session now. Okay. Thanks again. I end with the prayer. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you.